Hello, everybody, and welcome to a fantastic stream that we have today. I am joined here with Korey, and we're super excited to be talking a little bit about GitHub Copilot and GitHub Codespaces today. We've got a pretty fun agenda lined up, haven't we, Korey?
We do, and I'd love to see all the activity already in the chat. Let's see. I asked to see if you've used Copilot before, because maybe we have a Copilot expert in the audience. But let's see, Rex never used Copilot before. Chris would like to use Copilot. That's good. We got, is it free yet? We'll talk about a little bit about that later on, Jay. So stick around to get your is it free? I love that question. Always get started. And then we got people from all around the world, especially Duncan from London, England.
Oh, amazing.
I don't know if that's a question or not, Duncan. Let us know. Confirm.
We've got people from all over the place, haven't we? I love to see this in the chat. This is amazing. So we got people from Panama, we've got Philippines, London, Canada. Man, this is brilliant. Absolutely loving it. So let's jump into it, shall we? Let's just get going. Before we do anything, I would just like to say we have a code of conduct of which we would like you to abide by, as with every stream. The gist of it is, please be quiet. Please be careful.
Be quiet. Keep that chat quiet, kids. Okay, I'm talking here.
Please be kind. Please keep the questions coming. The chat is completely open. Just be friendly. We're all here to learn and have some fun. So, with an agenda, what are we going to be doing? So we're going to be telling you who we are and what we do, what we get up to. We're going to talk a little bit about Codespaces, what Codespaces actually is. We're going to talk about some Copilot and maybe even have a bit of a demo lined up for you. And it's going to be quite fun.
Oh, yeah.
So who am I? My name is Liam Hampton, and I'm a senior cloud advocate based here in London. So it's great to see you all that are joining from London today and all around the world. I'm an Auster ambassador because I always think about security. Security is a fundamental concept when we are developing. I speak to so many developers at conferences all around the world that just do not think about security. So I make it a point of interest for me. I'm also a Dev Network Advisory Board member. Doesn't really mean much. It just means I go around and help people organize conferences, hackathons, and do some judging. It's a pretty cool gig. I write a lot of Go code, and this is where we're going to spin the tables today because we're going to be maybe talking about a bit of JavaScript. And of course, a personal note, I like to travel the world. Korey, tell the world who you are and what you get up to.
Yeah, well, I would say there's two things you need to know about me. One, I was a child star when I was growing up, like a child actor. And two, I love Copilot and Codespaces. Okay, one of those things isn't true. Okay, I'll tell you that. So I'll let you guess which one is not true. But I love Copilot because it makes me feel way more powerful as a developer than I actually am. It gives me, but coding sometimes is a lonely thing. We do these streams, we can code and have a community, but having that helping hand and Codespaces as well is really saving a lot of time, especially when we want to show people things and the classic, it worked on my machine, doesn't work on you. What's going on? I don't know why it's not working in yours. No more excuses like that. So I love those two things. Sorry, I wasn't a child actor. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's show people why it's so good.
I love the fact that you actually just touched on works on my machine and not yours. And I just remember that being the coined term for Docker and containers. And hey, maybe we'll even touch on a little bit on that a little bit later. So what is Codespaces? If I can get to the next slide. There we go. What is Codespaces? Well, Codespaces is a fully configured dev environment for you as a developer, completely hosted in the cloud that starts in seconds. It basically means that you can just click a button from a Raspberry Pi, from your phone. I've even seen some people do it on their Apple Watches, and you can whip open a code editor. Now, essentially how it works is you are jumping into a virtual machine, which is hosted on Azure, as you can see here from the diagram, and you have a fully fledged environment. But inside that virtual machine, you're running containers. So you have Docker straight out of the box. So if you're familiar with how containers work, Docker is something which you'd run locally. And of course, Podman, if you want to use an open source one. That allows you to then clone your repositories, clone your code basically from anywhere, and be able to run it in this editor. It gives you the flexibility to use extensions. It gives you the flexibility to use different languages. And of course, you can bring your own containers that are not already pre-built. So let's say I want to run a container which runs NextJS, wink, wink. you'd have maybe the fundamentals of a node container with some JavaScript, which is pre-built and it's a really good foundation. But of course, you then have to go off and install NextJS package. You do your npm install command. Just because there's not one for Next.js doesn't mean that you can't go off and do that. So it gives you that flexibility to make everything that you need and want for your environment. How do you open them, we say? Well, on GitHub, if you go to repository, you'll be familiar with the green code button on your repository. You can either press a period on your keyboard and it will spin it up for you, or you can click on this button, go to the Codespaces ribbon, and then click Start New from the branch you want. Now, of course, you can see here on the slide, I've got one on the main branch, and it gives you a really fantastic name. This one is Fantastic Space Train. You get some really cool names. It's just randomized, but it's quite fun to see. And of course, like I said, you can run them on different branches, which means you can have your dev team working on a dev branch in one environment, and you can have your production team or your testing team running somewhere else on a different branch or different environment. Now, if you want to look at your usage, because of course, that does come at a cost. Now, with the free plan, you do have some free allocation. Now, from here, you can see the different kind of cores and machines that you're going to be running, because like I said, it does run on a virtual machine in the cloud. You've got 2 cores, 4 cores, 8 cores, 16 and 32 cores. That just means the beefier the machine, the better and faster it will run for you. And of course, you have storage associated with that. The more storage you use, the more it's going to cost you. However, as you can see here, I use it a fair bit. I use it on the ad hoc environment whenever I can't be bothered to spin up my whole local environment. Now, I will talk about a problem that this solved for me as well in a moment. But as you can see, I spent 21 hours of my 120 hours that are included for the month. Pretty awesome. The final part that I want to touch on with Codespaces for now is its availability to use your certain environment variables. So let's say you have a .m file. You want your environment variables to be accessed, but you don't have it in GitHub, but you've just opened up your Codespace from your repository. What do? Well, you would actually install it and have it ready for you from the repository environment variables. You can just pull them in and store them much like you would with GitHub Actions. They're available outside of your repository or outside of GitHub code base itself, but still available to you to use. What does it look like, Liam? Well, it looks pretty cool. Exactly like VS Code. Now, you may be thinking, Liam, that's just a local screenshot. Actually, no, it's not. That is from my browser, just zoomed in. If you look at the bottom left, it says Codespaces. It's quite small, so you get your glasses on, or magnifying glass rather, but you can see that that is actually a fully fledged environment hosted in Codespaces. It gives me everything I need from extensions in the marketplace, which I've pre-installed. It has given me a terminal of which I can use and run. And of course, if I'm running a local application like I am today, then it allows me to spin that up as well. It does a lot of port forwarding, so it allows you to then run that from your browser straight away, just as if it is on your local machine. It is so cool. Now, I want to tell you a quick problem that this solved. I was running a JavaScript application locally, and the code kept breaking. And it kept breaking because of my beautifier. My syntax was just set up for a different language. Didn't like it locally, but I thought, light bulb moment. I need to get this done quickly. So I go ahead and develop this in Codespaces. Now, we're going to look at a demo which was completely created in Codespaces in a moment. But first, I'm going to hand this over to Korey, who can tell us a little bit about Copilot. Or actually, how about Korey, you share your screen and show people some of the templates that we can use in Codespaces first. Almost forgot about that one.
Yep. Yeah, I love that you mentioned coding on the Apple Watch. I remember when the iPad, the new iPad like keyboard came out, and people were like trying to hack to like actually code on your iPad because like, oh, the keyboard is basically like the MacBook. So they're trying to make it that way. And I remember like trying to like install terminals and weird stuff like get VS Code running on my Mac, on my iPad. It was ugly, but now this is
pretty cool, right?
Much easier. I do see a lot of questions around pricing. I like this audience. They're really out to, they want to start working with this stuff. Yeah. So just to clear up, so Copilot, there is a free trial. So if you've never used Copilot, you can go, we'll put the link to Copilot. And then as Liam mentioned, GitHub Codespaces has a free tier. So you have a lot of allocated resources to actually use these tools we're showing you. So you can get started working with this today. You don't need to whip out your credit card right now to do that.
Exactly.
Cool. I feel like a little like one of those like shopping shows. Like you get started today, day. Cool. So like Liam mentioned, there's actually some templates in Codespaces, and I think that's really, really nice. And hopefully everyone can see this. Let me know if you can't see it on the screen.
If you a little bit.
Let's see.
Could you do that a little bit?
Yep.
It's either me or it's my eyes. I am wearing glasses.
Yeah. Okay. This is pretty giant on my screen. So hopefully you can see some things. It's actually ruined the CSS of that.
That looks perfect.
Cool. So I'm at this github.com/codespaces. If you go to that page, on yours, you'll also probably see this if you don't already have it set up. But in that link, we can automatically start like quick start templates, and they are kind of designed around some of the popular tools, libraries, at least that I use. Maybe you don't use them, but like we're gonna talk about Next.js, but there's already a React one. Maybe this is like designed for me. I'm not sure. There's some AI behind this, but there's a React template. So if I could use this template, it basically comes pre-installed with basically everything you need to do with React development. I also really like this Jupyter Notebook one because I have a really like all Codespace stories. I have a sad story where like I really ruined my Python install of on my Mac here, and it's all because I was trying to like upgrade to Python and use Jupyter Notebook, and it got really ugly. I almost wanted to give up everything, but now I can just do this use template, use Jupyter Notebook, and then I can automatically have a Jupyter Notebook ready to do some machine learning, data science work right out of the gate, which I think is super nice. I also have funny names, maybe not as funnier as Liam's, but yeah, have some Codespaces running here. So you will see those once you've created a Codespace, so you can access them. You can rename them. So if you don't really like these funny names, but you want to get something, really that's more tied to you, what you're doing, you can do that. You can publish them to new repositories, change the machine type, which might be really important to the actual kind of development that you're doing. So, again, especially if you're doing more like machine learning and I guess data science type work, you also probably want to get a little bit more than the 4 core, that's out of the gate. And this all connects to your plan that you will have as far as how much time you have as far as using your Codespaces. But the thing is what's really important, you want to know what's kind of behind all these templates. There are actually separate repos that you can take a look at. So like Codespaces, Jupyter, and you can actually see what's inside these. I think Liam is going to show us again some of the dev container stuff. So actually the configuration of what's in there. And then, we have this React one that I mentioned before, Next.js, which you're going to use later on. Exciting. And then I wanted to point to this because this is really cool. This is actually a former colleague of ours, Ryan. And I don't know if anyone's doing Rust development. Say in the chat if you've done any Rust work. And I see some questions, so we're going to answer those later on too. So, but this was really cool. They made this Rust starter kit, and they actually made it 3 years ago. So I'm not even sure if it's needs to be updated. But you can see like a clear list of like all of the tools that's included that are like, if you ever done Rust work, like, you have to install these things and like make your terminal work well. It all comes together, right? So there's even Vim, the text editor is here on my ZCH, which is a nice, update or integration to your terminal. And even like the essential Rust tools. So I think this is like a great example of like, if you want to like make more developer friends, like go out and like which Liam's going to show you to make the configuration, but like make a really cool code space that like gets people started really quick on learning some of these things, or like even like a perfect what your like dream environment will be for doing development. And, like post it on a repo. People will love you, I think. So that's another great benefit of using Codespaces. And I think it's again saves a lot of time.
Just want to touch on that actually, Korey. So if you scroll up to the top where we've got the code and it says 3 years ago, if any of you in the chat or any of you watching this on demand or live for that matter of fact, if you want to go and add to this, these are open source, right? Go and get contributing. If you see a typo, if you see something which you think, that needs updating, like a version bump or something. Of course, they probably have Dependabot and all these kind of things on there now, but nonetheless, go check it out. Go have some fun. It's one of these cool things, right? It's community building for community. And like you said, if you want to create a really cool code space, then this is the perfect time to do it. It's all about developer experience. I'll tell you what, 3-4 years ago, if I had this and I could just, press one button and spin my whole environment up just from a repository, oh my goodness, that would have been just amazing when I was starting to code. Alas, I don't want to digress too much. What do we have next?
No, but I think it's a really good point. And the last pull request was August 2020. So the world has changed quite a bit since then. So, that could be you. And it's a quite still active, 77 forks, 101 stars. So I think that's, you could be a contributor on that stuff. There was a question around, Aman had asked about monthly credit. How can I see that? So hopefully maybe this would be tough to see, but there's this page. We'll put in the link page that I had shared as well. But you can see here, so GitHub free for personal accounts. And you have 120 core hours per month in 15 gigabytes. And then that will get shown as well on your Codespaces page as well. So you will know these sorts of things. And you can get started with now and working with Codespaces and follow along if you like as well. So I just wanted to answer that question. But yes, let's see what you've built, Liam.
Yeah, I think actually touching on that, everything that we've done today, everything we do today and show you, we've done completely free. We haven't had to pay a single cent, dime, any penny for wherever you're from, whatever country you're from. We haven't had to pay any money. So everything we've done today is completely free.
Kroner.
Euro, that's the one. Gonna get it out. Alrighty, so let's actually jump back to the slides. And Korey, let's talk a little bit about Copilot and what Copilot is, because let's face it, this has been like a huge topic for Microsoft, for GitHub, for VS Code, for other editors that we've got and that it can plug into. And especially with the past, I think it's since December when ChatGPT, or November when ChatGPT started to come out the woodwork and people just were like absolutely on this AI hype. And we've just been able to sort of go forward with it and show you how you can do this, but with code. So talk us through a little bit about Copilot. What is it?
It's a coder's best friend. Mic drop. No.
End of stream.
Yeah. I try to make this really simple for everyone about the capabilities. I know there's quite a different levels of experience with Copilot. Some people haven't used it before. We're going to see it in action later on, so this won't be the demo part. But I mean, I think a lot of people have seen or know about it because about being able to write code, right? So it analyzes the code that you're actually working in at the moment, which is a pretty important part, especially when you start using Copilot more and more, especially in a repo or a project, because it can kind of adapt and understand a little bit more about what you might be wanting to do next in your application. So you may have a function that's like, we're going to do JavaScript, right? So event handlers are really popular in JavaScript. And that that code gets written over and over and over again, just in general. But you might also then need to okay, I'm going to respond to a click event, and then I'm going to respond to a submit event. And Copilot can kind of analyze these sorts of things and know, okay, you're building a form. You probably want to then respond to the form being submitted, for example. And then it can make those suggestions to you. You can also do things like prompting, which is a big part of working with any sort of generative AI or LLM, whatever you want to call it, where we are actually making requests. So we do this through the commenting of anything that in your language that you're using. And you can say, create a function that, prints out, welcome everyone to the stream every time a new attendee, a new audience member joins, for example, right? So and if it knows and you've already defined these variables, or you're going to define them, it can also already sort of develop those functions. So it's always good to review the code, understand what's working. So it still takes some expertise, especially on the prompting. So it's not just going to be like, make me app that does B, or save the world, right? And push enter. It's not just going to generate all those things, but it does bit by bit. The component parts of your application allow you to write code much quicker, and then again you can understand where that code is going later on. The other thing it does, I don't think it's like, yeah, go ahead, Liam.
No, I was going to say, I wish I could press a button and it could just create the world for me, right? I think that's everyone's idea.
Soon meme, soon.
Exactly. You said one thing. You mentioned one thing before you continue. Just for the viewers that may be new to this or don't know much about AI, what does LLM actually stand for?
Oh yeah, large language model is officially. I've seen also large luggage model, which I really like because they do take a lot of resources. But large language model, yeah. So that's all your GPT, all of the craze, all of the new things out there that's been talked about with AI, all kind of fits under this one umbrella, or using a model to generate code, text, videos, images, all of these great things. So
amazing. Thank you. Sorry, I will let you continue now. I just wanted to pick that up and just make sure everybody understood what it is, because I always fall into this trap where I end up saying a lot of acronyms and I always sometimes forget to explain them. And learning now a lot of the AI acronyms, everything around that subject and topic is just, they go deep, and there's a lot of them. But yeah, so I will let you continue.
I mean, I talk to AI people who know AI way too much. So thank you for that, because I would definitely just assume, oh yeah, everybody knows these sorts of things. We did get a question. I just want to hop on the Codespaces. Pricing based on CPU cores. Is there a way to control RAM for a Codespace? I don't know. I don't think so, because we have they have like strict machine types. So obviously we're allocating what's going on here, right? Is we're allocating a resource in the cloud for hosting this code. So I don't think there's going to be maybe in the future we'll have ability to customize them, but they all have the dedicated RAM already kind of pre-attached.
It would be, but then I mean the answer to the question is no. I don't think there is in the moment. I also don't think or don't know if there will be in the future. But if we just take it down to maybe an architectural level, if we're thinking of the kind of programs or I guess systems we're going to be building within Codespaces, you've kind of touched on it already, Korey, where these are going to be specific machines for specific certain jobs. But because it's running Docker within a virtual machine, and then you can have Docker within Docker, you kind of want to make sure that you're not playing too much with the RAM, because you could be trying to save some money and try and squeeze it too much, and then wonder why it may fall over or might take a long time. So there can be some adverse effects to just maybe bumping up the CPU and slimming down on the RAM, as much as you may want to slim down the CPU and bump up on the RAM. It depends which way you go. But I think giving developers less flexibility in that instance is actually kind of a good thing at this point, because it allows us to maybe not, have to spend too much time in development or worrying too much about it, really. So, no, sorry, that was a long-winded answer to your question. But
I thought that was a great answer, though. Great answer.
It's developer experience. You want to be able to click a button and just go. And this is pretty much what Codespaces does. Anyway, back into Copilots.
Yeah. So, I mean, the features, again, writing the code is super important, but it also can test code. So you can write certain testings, again, like things that maybe you don't necessarily like as a developer, but or requirements for building good production level code or good working code at least. GitHub Copilot can do those sorts of things. You can also get answers. I've seen people write prompts that just say like, what is this function doing, or what are the principles of a good React component, or whatever those things are. They're all sort of built into working with Copilot. Liam, if you go back, so I mean, this is us talking about it. There's obviously a lot of statistics numbers of people that have been we're getting satisfied with their work. I heard on like a Lex Friedman podcast, he said this, so I'm going to quote him. But GitHub Copilot makes coding fun again. So if you're falling out of out of love with coding, or you treat it as a job, look, Copilot can make it fun again for you.
Pulling at the heartstrings, that one.
Yeah. I need to get that on a shirt, but maybe that would be but yeah, so that's really satisfied. A lot of people with developers working on it. So again, if this is your first time seeing Copilot today, do give it a try. It's a free trial, and you will get a kind of understanding of what we're talking about hands-on, because it's all about experimentation, which we'll probably do a lot of experimentation today, just to show you the process of like getting comfortable with things. But that's it's gonna be a great tool.
Awesome. So
there's one last one. Yeah,
what
this is exciting. Maybe some people might be here waiting for us to show this, and unfortunately, I'm going to say we're not going to see it, but yet. But this is so the GitHub Copilot X. And Liam, do you know what the X stands for?
I actually don't. I was trying to find that out myself. It could mean 10. It could mean the next. Who knows? But hey, I don't know.
Classic mistake. Classic. I'll give anyone a digital handshake in the chat if anyone knows what X stands for. So I'll leave that open. You can probably quickly Google this, or you can even ask maybe ChatGPT. But what does the GitHub, the Copilot, like GitHub Copilot X is a new suite of tools been recently relaunched, and X stands for something, and I'll leave it at that. But one of the tools is actually GitHub Copilot Chat. So if you've ever done this workflow, which is probably like the new developer workflow, which is ask ChatGPT something, they copy and paste the code and go into VS Code and then run the code, right? So I think the smart people at GitHub notice this workflow, and instead of having just what we'll show you today, which is like the Copilot extension as it is now, where you can prompt, you can ask things, and you can generate code much like you would. This chat interface, this chat feeling is really good. It works really well for just working with these generative models and this AI, right? So they've actually integrated a chat window within your VS Code. So it's GitHub Copilot Chat. This being rolled out now to some select wait list, and then later in the year will be readily available or generally available in the extension. But exciting times. Again, this is going to really improve the experience from a developer side of things, is getting the answers, getting code, and you can actually really ask a lot of questions more in a natural language than you might feel in other ways. But nobody took me on the challenge on X, so I guess I'm gonna have to just say, oh, okay, here we go. Oh, Harry, always on point, Harry, because this is a copy and paste, Harry. Well, at least you put the quotes in, so give some credit. So the X represents a placeholder where we intend GitHub Copilot to be available and what we expect to be capable of doing. So this GitHub Copilot, and we're talking about now, but GitHub, there's Copilot CLI, so working in the command line. There's Copilot for docs. So Copilot being able to ask questions and get answers on code is basically going to be almost everywhere in the whole development chain. So that's what the X stands for. For anyone who doesn't know, Harry, I guess you didn't know that's why you copied. Oh, you want to be exactly right, so that's why you copy and pasted. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to hold my hands up and say I didn't even know that. I didn't even know. Thank you, Korey. Thank you. I have learned something today.
That's all, Harry. Okay, cool. Let's get into it though, Liam. Let's see this in action.
Can I mention one thing? Because I guarantee people are going to probably ask this. In terms of the model underneath Copilot, so we understand GPT 3, 3.5 Turbo, etc. But Copilot is actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but it actually uses, is it Codex? And it's Correct. More of it's a trained model specifically trained on code, which allows you to then be a little bit more verbose in that area. And I believe this is the kind of the way that it's going to go forward when it comes to training other models, right? They're going to have this generic model out of which you're going to find a subset which is going to allow you to focus more and train on that data in a specific domain. And this is exactly what Copilot has done. And this is why it is so good and pretty cool. And this is why I think I love talking about it and researching it. Anybody who's watched any of our streams, and Korey, you'll vouch for this as well, I am definitely a new person, a newbie, whatever you want to call me, to AI. And, recently understanding how it works, what it is, where it's come from, and where we're going to go with it, it's been pretty fun. So certainly learning those things.
Love it. GitHub Copilot for Work Groups 3.1.
Oh yes,
it's gonna be
it's the ones in like the applications that we're going to be running, which I really can't wait to help create a little bit of a better PowerPoint presentation, because I think these are they could do with a bit of a sprucing up. So if anybody has any sort of animations or stuff you want to send me or Korey, then we are welcome for them. I promise. With that being said, we do have a survey which we would love if you could fill out. There's only 3 questions, I promise, and it doesn't take long at all. And this is for us to get some feedback. Now, of course, we kind of somewhat already alluded to it, haven't we, Korey, in terms of the questions and answers we've been giving when it comes to paying for Codespaces or Copilot and whatnot. But if you could just pop your answers and what you personally think down. It's completely anonymous, don't worry. But it just allows us to understand what you think and gather some feedback. And of course, if you like what you see today, then hey, who knows? Maybe you can go and try this out for yourself as well. So I'll leave that up for a second. Anything you want to say before we jump into a demo, Korey? Is there anything else that I've missed off, or anything else that you think we've missed off, rather?
I know. I think we covered a lot of it. Maybe, and this is pretty language agnostic as well. So, we're going to do JavaScript today because, JavaScript is cool. But if you've seen Liam and I on any of these streams before, JavaScript is not necessarily the only thing that we do. So we can, we'll definitely, if you're a Rust developer, Python developer, C#, C++, all of these things, Copilot will do the things that we are doing today for you as well. I'm going to copy and paste this in the chat as well, the link for that. So
Yeah,
thank you.
And I think because of the replay, once you post in the chat, we'll just pop it up on the screen one more time so that people can see it. We'll do it periodically. We're not going to do it right now because there's no point having 2 links on the screen at once, right?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead. And as always, we have a dedicated slide which has got the wrong title on that says demo. And this is where we jump out. Everybody,
this is a survey demo. We're actually going to survey the demo. So demo the survey.
We're going to go into the form, and that's all it's going to be. Right. So whilst I get this ready, because we're going to be sharing from my screen. And by the way, I apologize for any background. I'm currently in the Microsoft, background noise. I'm in the Microsoft Reactor, and we've got a bustling event that's about to start at 6 p.m. So as you can imagine, we have got a couple of people in.
Normally, I'm a nice guy to say, "Oh, don't worry, you can't hear it," but you can definitely hear it.
I apologize, everybody. Right, I'm just going to be able to share my screen now. So hopefully, let me know if you can see. Yeah, you should be able to see that one.
Maybe do 2 clicks, zoom in. I'm not sure if everyone can. Yeah, that's probably good.
Nice.
Let us know if you can't see it in the chat, as you probably will.
Yeah, I'm going to make that a little bit bigger so I can see it as well. Okay, then. So we have got a repository. Now, admittedly, this is a private repository for now, but rest assured, you will be able to get to this later on. Now, I will make it public once we finish the demo. What we've got is essentially a drawing app. Now, this drawing app has been created with NextJS, which, create next app. I know people might shout at me for that one, but it's I'm new to JavaScript. Or not new, but I'm not as versatile in it as I would be with Golang or a different language. So I thought, hey, this is a perfect opportunity for me to learn some JavaScript and learn with Copilot. So what we've got here is a general repository. Now I can open this up in a Codespace, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, as you can see, I've got nothing going here, and this is similar to the box I shared earlier in the slides. Now, if I click on this green button, it's going to open up a new tab, and it's going to start a Codespace for me. Now, you'll see how quick this really is. Hopefully, the Wi-Fi holds up.
You should get a timer. You should get a timer tab as well to really do it, like one of those real speed test things.
Indeed. But you can see here, if you're familiar with Docker, then you'll understand that it's pulling an image here. So we're essentially already into a virtual machine. Now we're pulling down an image, which is a Node.js image, like I mentioned earlier. And it's pretty quick. So I've just gone from having a code repository to a full-fledged environment in seconds. So I wasn't lying earlier, and it wasn't just a bit of spiel that we thought we'd say in seconds. This has literally taken me less than a minute. Now, I'm just going to hold off a second because I've got a post build or post create command that I'm going to run you through. Once you create a code space, it's got a few things to tie up. We want to get you into the environment straight away, but it's always going to run a post build or post create command. And what that allows you to do is run any ad hoc scripts that you have. In this instance, I am installing a few things, and I want to go off and make sure it installs Next.js, because if I run the npm run dev command now, it's not going to recognize it because, it's still installing some bits and bobs. But we're just going to give it a second whilst I walk us through the code.
Could you zoom in as well, Liam?
Oh, have I got to zoom in again? Cool, yeah. I could do sure thing.
Codespaces, maybe you could put that in the config, zoom. That'd be amazing. Browser config or something. Automatically have it zoomed in so you never forget.
Exactly. So I actually just got rid of something which I didn't mean to, but I minimized the terminal a little bit, but it just said post create has finished. And those of you with an eagle eye will notice that these 2 packages over here have been modified. Of course, this isn't a Git repository. It is Git enabled. So it tells me it's been modified. I now know that I can run that command and it will build the application. But first, let's have a look at the dev container. So I've kind of alluded to it. What is it? Let's open it up. It's a bit of JSON. And it's a really cool bit of JSON because it allows you to do quite a lot. Now, admittedly, this is quite a simple application by any means, but it's still pretty important to understand how this works. Now, you don't need a dev container. You don't need to have this folder. It will just work automatically in Codespaces. But if you want to run a smaller image, if you want to have a little bit more streamlined and cost-effective for you, then this is probably the way to go. Now, I've called it Node.js because I've got a Node.js image. And it's telling me that I've got a repository that I'm going to pull it from. So it's calling the image from Microsoft repository. And there's a whole bunch of them that are available to me. And it's a JavaScript image. Now, the important part here is on line number 7, because it allows me to create some customizations. Now, inside here, I've got VS Code, and inside VS Code, I've got extensions. With the extensions, we're installing LiveShare and GitHub Copilot. Now, if I didn't have this enabled in this JavaScript object, then I wouldn't have the extensions automatically installed. I have to go and do them manually. However, because they are there, it's gone off and it's installed Copilot. If you have maybe squint a little bit and see in the bottom right, I've got this lovely little Copilot logo. And I also have the extension LiveShare on the left. Now I'm doing a really funny thing at the end of this command. I'm doing a post create command. And what that's going to do is go and run a script. Now I could run in this line here, I could run a command itself, maybe like a yarn or an npm command, but no, I want to run a script because this allows me to do multiple. What's in the script, Liam? Let's go and have a look. Jumping into my scripts folder, I've got install NextJS, and it's a simple bash script. It's a simple bash that's going to do npm install next react DOM. Now what that does is it just goes off and installs the next package for me, allowing me to run my Next.js applications. Anything that I've said or gone through, Korey, that you think is a little bit, didn't quite understand? Or does that seem all pretty okay for now?
I mean, it seems really clear to me. We don't see any questions in the chat, so people seem to appreciate it. So I think, yeah, it's straightforward. I think this is good to show.
Cool. So as you can see, we're just doing this quite methodically. We're going down each line at a time. Now, to show you that we're running Docker, I can just do in the terminal Docker PS. Now, Docker images. Oh, okay. Well, that's a fail straight away. Docker hasn't loaded, but it's all right. We can ignore that. It's always the beauty with live demos.
You always try to do one extra thing that you don't really need to do, and that's what it brings.
Don't need to do it, but it's important to understand that the Docker daemon is there. I think I've come into a couple of bugs, but hey, it's noted, and this is also recorded, so I can go back and show people. But essentially what we've got is a number of images that we can use. So I've kind of said that we're using one of them, and in a different tab over here, I've got all of the available images that we can use. Now, these are all of the templates and all the images that we can pull in Codespaces from our repository. There's so many of them, and these are such a fantastic foundation that you can go ahead and use. So look, we've got my favorite, Go. So we've got a Go and Postgres. We've got Java, Postgres. We've got Node. And this is the one that we're using today, Node.js and JavaScript. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see that there's quite a few here, and there are quite verbose. There's quite a lot in here. And of course, we've got the Azure ones because you can install the Azure CLI. You've got the Azure extensions, and so on and so forth. But hey, different images have different sizes. Now, if you were to do this straight away and you don't specify an image and you want a dev container, it will automatically pull a universal image. Do not be put off with the universal image taking a day and a half to load up. It's a huge image. Now, this is something which I want to mention because it's about 2.5 gigabytes. Now, you can imagine downloading 2.5 gigabytes is pretty time consuming, especially when you're dealing with a small VM in the cloud.
Liam, it sounds like you're speaking from experience here.
I am, because this happened to me only last week when it took me 12 minutes to start up a code space because I was using the universal image. However, that's not to say it's bad. It's to say the universal image caters for so many different things and scenarios that you could want, or services and scenarios, rather. So don't be put off with that one. Just be aware that you would want to specify the image for what you're doing. Like I said, as you saw, this one only took less than a minute to spin up and sort itself out, which is pretty cool. So enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and run this and see what we are actually playing with today. As I said, we're going to do npm run dev is the command, and it should spin up a Next.js application for us. Now, this is just running on localhost. It's nothing significant. It's a really simple Next.js application with one component, and that component is, if I jump into my lovely, over here, we have a canvas. Okay, so the canvas is there, and all it's allowing us to do is draw. If I go over to my ports, I can see that I've got a couple of port forwards. Now, I'm just going to go to my terminal and go to localhost 3000. It's no different to running on your local machine. And once it's connected and done its thing, you can see we have a pretty boring page, should we say. But it actually does something. We have got a canvas that we can draw in. So what we're going to show you today is we're going to show you how you can start creating your own Microsoft Paint, coin that what you want, in a browser. And we're going to do it with the help of Copilot and, of course, Korey. So, Korey, if I add you into the Codespace, because I have got live share enabled, so what happens if I try and share this link with you? So I'm going to copy this to my clipboard. Now, this is the same as if you're running it locally, just using live share. I'm going to send this to Korey on our chat and hopefully get him in. So let me know once you've done that one. And you can see it's the same as if you're running locally. There's no difference here. Allows you to do some fun stuff. And Korey's just going to help me along the way with some code. So let me know when you're in, Korey, and then we can get going. Whilst I set this up, we want to create, what's our first change we're going to make, Korey? It's going to be the brush size. Should we do a brush size? Let's do a brush size. Let's make that brush
size
bigger. Now, again, I apologize for any background noise. So the first thing we want to do is edit the canvas. If we can edit the canvas, there's a few things that we want to try and do. Let's say we want a slider along the bottom and we want our main painting canvas to get bigger, or our painting brush. And I'm going to accept Korey, and I'm going to accept read and write, because I want Korey to come along and I want him to edit some files. So, Korey, you are in
the machine.
You are in the machine. Okay, so what's the first thing that we need to do? I don't know JavaScript, so I'm going to go maybe let you lead it. And what's some of the code that we want to write?
Cool. Well, so as we do with React, JavaScript, React, Next, it's all about components, right? For anyone who's new to this world, components are basically building blocks of our application, and React Next allows us to do separate building blocks, putting them all together like Legos, essentially. So we already have this Canvas.js. So maybe if you follow me, Liam, I think you could, if you follow me, maybe then it'll go there.
You are at the top of Canvas.js.
Yes.
So where are we? So we want to see this over here. So we want a const. Is this right? So let's go down.
So I'm going to start. This is going to be like, back in my day, we didn't have machines to help us code. So I don't have any Copilot on my side. Liam has Copilot on his side. So he's going to help me help myself, I guess. So the first thing we do in a React application, or when we ever want to do any changes to a component, we do this state thing. And like Liam had said, we have this const. And then we're going to let's say we want the brush size. So we need to do two things. This is not a React course at all, but we're going to do like a brush size. And this is going to give us the one value that, okay, whatever the brush size is that we need. And then the next thing we need to do in when we just call it state, we also need to then set a brush size. So that means if we need to do any changes there. And I'm going to see if Copilot, if you click on that, maybe this is giving me some suggestions, or am I going to have to
Yeah, I think you're right, brush size. And then I'm going to see if we can use the state and maybe give it a number for what it's expecting.
Okay, so let me make this set brush size. So again, brush size it's gonna edit that whenever set brush size is gonna ever edit. So let's see. Next thing we do
is going. Okay, so from my side, all I've done is clicked on that line and it's come up with a suggestion. Okay, so this suggestion for me, I'm not sure if Korey's able to see this one, and let me know in the chat let me know in the chat if you cannot see this, or if it's a bit too blurry, if it's too small. But it's saying use state 5. Okay, I'm going to assume I'm going to go with that. But then I'm going to revisit that later. I want to see if 5 is actually really applicable in this instance. So what use state is doing is it returns a state value for us. Okay, and we give it an input, and it's going to be expecting a number. And I'm just going to go with 5. Let's go with that one. What's the next line of code that we now have to edit, Korey? Because we've got a brush size. We're setting the brush size. Okay, so these are states or constants. And now we actually want to create this. We want to have it on screen. We want to give it some context, don't we?
Yeah, so the next thing we're going to do, so Liam has, we've had this draw basically function here where the drawing happens. So we want to actually edit when someone selects, let's say we're going to make a selector or something on the brush size, that in fact the brush size gets changed, the actual width, if you will, or whatever the size is of the brush. So we need to actually like make a value there. And the thing is, since we made this state variable, this brush size, that's what we're going to point and say, hey, whenever we want to make the changes, that's what we're going to read. That's the value that's going to be assigned to the brush size. So we have this context, get context already defined here, the CTX. So now within the context, we want to do this line width. So I'm gonna give Copilot a chance here before I type this and see if it's gonna give me any options here. Ooh.
Cool. Okay, so it has given us an option, and it said, so we've got context, so CTX dot. So if you are learning JavaScript and you kind of know the first part of this, like me, I know that we need a context here, and so does Korey. He's written that line, and Copilot has automatically come back to us and said, hey, do you want to finish that line with width, which is in camel case, equals to brush size? Is that what we want, Korey? Is that correct?
It's what I would do if I was a Copilot AI robot.
Cool. So we're going to keep that. We're going to keep that in there. And as you can see, Copilot is really helping us step by step get better and better and better as this application goes on. So we've got our brush size defined. We have got it within the draw function, or the constant rather. It's with context that we're giving it the brush size. What's the next line? What else do we have to do? Because I'm trying to learn JavaScript here. I'm trying to understand how this is all piecing together. What's our next move?
It's all coming together. So the next thing you do in JavaScript, right? So we've already defined, or we want the brush size, right? And then we're going to give whatever the value of the brush size is for whatever the user selected. But we need to then change the brush size, right? We need to watch when the user says, I want a bigger brush. Please give me that new bigger brush. So we need to have an event handler here. So we're going to have this const, and I'm just going to say handle, because this is like typically what JavaScript developers write. We write handle whatever event name. So I'm going to see if Copilot kind of understands what I'm doing, what I'm going to try to do here.
Okay, so Copilot from my end has given us the constant name handle brush size change equals event in some brackets, and then it's given it an arrow function with an open curly brace. This is a really cool bit of Copilot here, because that to me isn't a complete line of code. And that tells me that there's going to be some follow-up lines of code that it's going to try and give us or maybe suggest to us. So is that right, Korey? So we've got handle brush size change equals event with an arrow function and an open curly brace.
That's a good start. Now we obviously need to do something in those curly braces, but okay, let's see.
So I'm going to take over here, and I'm going to see if Copilot can give us the next line of code and see if it'll help us. So if I press enter, it's going to give us a suggestion of code, and it's saying set brush size. In fact, I'll tab that so Korey can see it too.
I can
Tell
see
me
it
if that's
now.
correct. Is that correct? So we're passing in the event target and a value.
Yeah, that's perfect. And what's doing here is basically saying whatever target that we're going to have, so later we're going to do the user interface, give me that value, and we're going to set the brush size to that value now. So again, I said the set brush size changes the value of whatever the brush size is. So we need to have something to watch for that and then change the brush size. So this is perfect. Good job, Copilot.
Yeah, pat on the back for that one. But as you can see, that's not a complete function or not a complete constant, right? So we now need to close the braces. And Copilot should know that, or it may try and give us another suggestion. You know, this is not to say it's always perfect, but it does a pretty good job. And straight away, it has given us the closing brace to that. It recognizes that that is the end of it. It's not expecting us to put anything else. And he thinks that is a minimum viable code for us to run. So is that correct? I presume that's all correct now, Korey.
Job done here at least, but not the whole job is not done. We still have to actually show this to the user, right? We need to, write some code to, be able for the user to select what brush size they want. And if you never, this is completely new to you, React or Next.js, the way we do it is this JSX kind of syntax where we can actually return, instead of just returning JavaScript, we can return some JavaScript and HTML. So you'll see some of that now, but now we need to actually show some brush selector or something for the user to do that. So let's see what Copilot can do for us here.
Exactly. So we've got handle brush size change, and it's already highlighted in kind of a grayed out area for us. And it's expecting, to me as a developer, that's expecting it to be called from somewhere, but it's not. Now, if we look at our return values at the bottom, we've got a canvas. Now that canvas is what we're drawing on. It's returning it to the screen for us. So we have the reference, which is the canvas reference that we're passing through. We've got the width and the height. We've got on mouse down, move, draw. a stop drawing, so it knows when to action and when not to action based on an event that we're giving it. So let's go and see if we can get Copilot to maybe edit this canvas and give us something better. Now, who knows? This may work, this may not work. So I'm going to actually help it out probably by giving it a div. I want to have a different div in there, right? I want to break it out into 2 different parts for us. So let's see if I can start writing, and straight away it's given us maybe not the best start, but that's fine. So I can give it open and closed divs. Now you may be familiar with this, you may be not, but hey, I've got auto completion on my editor, and sometimes if you have that on, HTML can work pretty well. But I'm going to move this canvas into the div. And by all means, I hope that I'm doing this and copying this correctly, because hey, this is all part of fun of live demos, right? So let's paste that canvas in there. And I'm going to see if I can format it. There we go. So that to me is looking okay? That looks kind of okay to me so far.
Looks good.
So we've got the canvas, we've got a div, and it's in that new div. What do I need to do after this one? Well, I probably want to have maybe a second div. Is that correct?
Yeah, because I mean, I think we need to have like a good separation in our code. So we need to have this new element that we're going to make, which is the brush size selector.
Okay, cool. So Copilot on my screen. Again, Korey, I'm not sure if you can see this, but
I can see
it's automatically suggesting
on the stream. I can see it, but not on my screen.
Yeah. So it's automatically selecting a new div for me. Now, of course, it's going to start breaking with the formatter, but we're going to go new input. It's given us a really cool suggestion here. It's saying, do you want to label this? Do you want to have a label on your page? And it's saying HTML4 brush size. Okay, that kind of sounds about right. And it's giving me the label of brush size. This is speeding up my development. I would have to go off and Google how to add a label because I don't write HTML every day. And it's automatically giving me that. That looks about right. The editor's not necessarily complaining too much. Then it's going to ask for an input. Now, this is correct because as a user, I'm going to be creating an input on the page for the application. So we're going to tab that in, and it's not going to fill out the whole line because it's probably expecting a couple of elements. So let's do underneath. So by doing this, I'm just pressing enter, and it's automatically making a new call. And it's saying type range. Now, typically, I'd actually be expecting an ID, but we can swing back to that in a moment. But it's giving me a range, okay? And it's saying range because we want a slider, or it's going to assume we want a slider. Next line, now it's giving me an ID, okay? So I stand corrected. Copilot clearly listened.
Oh, yeah. Maybe it's listening through the stream too. Hello, Copilot.
Maybe it's joined us. maybe we're feeding this LLM, you know? Then we've got a min. What is this? What does this mean? Min. I presume that's the minimum value of the slider, right? So we're going to say min is 1. I mean, you can have 0 if you want, but then you'd just be drawing nothing on the screen if it was 0, right? So we're going to have min as 1. We're going to have max as 100. I mean, maybe we could have 100. I don't want 100. I don't think we need 100. So let's go to 50. Let's see if we can keep to 50. New line, and then we're going to say it's giving me value. It's brush size. So now we're bringing in the elements from above. So as you can see, we've gone through this quite methodically. We've given it context. We've looked at the state, given it a state object. Now we're passing it down into the div, and we're creating something. So we're going to tab that across. It's going to call brush size. And then I want something to happen on change. Now, hopefully, Copilot knows this, and it certainly does. And it's saying on change equals handle brush size change. That sounds about right to me. So I'm going to tab that across. Now that should be it. I don't think I need anything else on this. And quite rightly, Copilot doesn't either. Now, as you can see in my terminal, everything is erroring out because I've broken everything inside this editor, and it's an automatic reload with NextJS. So we'll tap that across and save it. Now, I have a syntax error. Korey, do you reckon you can help me out and fix this? Do you think it's maybe like a broken div? I maybe forgotten a div. Is that correct?
It looks like it. Let's see.
Copilot has told me. Copilot has spoken, everybody. Oh. Copilot has said.
Copilot's stealing my shine.
I know. He's stealing the show, Korey. We tab that across, and automatically it looks like it has somewhat fixed it. Now, if I scroll down
didn't
here,
complete the brush size, I think. Oh, is it there now? Let me see where it's.
I've got a lot of errors. There we go. It's actually fixed it for me. So if I format this document, it should start to look okay. As you can see in the terminal, it has started to recompile. So should we go check out and see if it's working, Korey? Let's
Fingers
have
crossed.
a look.
I mean, the last demo thing that we didn't work. So
hold up, people. Hold up. We have got something on the screen here. Yeah. This wasn't here before. There's no smoke and mirrors. You've all been watching what I've been doing, and you've seen Korey inside VS Code as well. So we've got a brush size. Now let's go and make that a little bit bigger, and hopefully we'll see this get a little bit. Oh, look at that.
That's bigger. I'll tell you that much. You don't need to zoom in. You don't need to zoom in, Liam. That is bigger there.
So as you can see here, we're having some great fun drawing our own little canvas in VS Code with Copilot. And I would not have been able to do this normally. Okay, so I don't actually know off the back of my hand what all of these input labels are, what everything's expecting, and I certainly don't know JavaScript all that well. But with the help of a colleague and the help of Copilot, we can pair program together and we can create some pretty awesome stuff. How does that sound, Korey? How does that? That's pretty good, right?
Pretty good. I mean, it's not going to win any design awards or any like web development awards now. But hey, that's a good start. And I don't know how long we've been on. That was like 30 minutes, so less than that. So I think that's good for someone who doesn't know JavaScript as well. But exactly. I dropped the links in the chat there so you could see them, because we did get a question or a command, maybe not even a question, but change the color. Ushashi says. So Shashi, I think that's a great idea. And actually, I wrote the code that does change the color on this Paint app, and it's on a branch on the repo that we'll publish almost immediately after this. And that's going to be on the link page. So you'll see the code that we wrote, and you can play around with it, add some new features, and try to play with Copilot to understand what's going on.
Exactly. So, I mean, sorry that it took so long. We really wanted to get to the color picker, but hey, like Korey said, it is all available for you. Now, what's next? We've got VS Code Day on the 26th of April, 2023, and that is where you can join in a whole bunch of really cool streams. I think one of the ones that I'm most excited about is the Python web apps one, and that is where we are going to be learning all about Python and how you can build web apps in Codespaces with Copilot. I hope it's going to be so cool. Maybe I can learn some Flask, and maybe you can too. What are you most excited about, Korey?
Yeah, I'm also fun about the TypeScript wizards, this VS Code tips and tricks TypeScript wizards. One, because Matt Pilcock is like god tier TypeScript instructor of all time. So it's really cool that he's involved in this project. And then TypeScript is always a learning curve. Like, I don't think there's probably like 3 people who feel like they've mastered TypeScript, but then like the rest of the world is still learning TypeScript in some type of way. So I think having an expert like that and talking specifically about the VS Code tips is going to be an amazing session, I think.
Awesome. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to all of these fun things that are coming our way. So I think with that, we can probably round this stream off by saying if you want any of the material that we've spoken about today, I promise I will make this repository public for you all right this moment. Go and grab this. Korey, I think, is in the chat. If this is posted in the chat, you can go and grab all of the links, all the material that we've spoken about today and been through. And of course, if you would like to connect with us, then please do scan these QR codes. And we'd like to say a massive thank you for joining us. We've had a great audience today. I've seen such a big number in StreamYard. It's amazing to see you all, and hopefully you had some fun. And I can't wait to see what you build with this repository. Go and show us. Tag us on Twitter, tag us on LinkedIn with some of the cool things that you create. Go and create that color picker. Go and create the canvas bigger, and go create some cool art.
Perfect. Bye, everyone.
So I think massive thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Copilot, as well. Thank Copilot.
Yes.
Thank Copilot.
Shout out to Copilot. Thanks all.